Hi, Jessica. Jeff Allen here. I just saw your post on this. I got to get the senior one. The exact title of this, something like some sales calls are like a bad first date. And really interesting because the things that you say in the article are really kind of correlate a lot what I've been saying over the past year in a bunch of videos on qualifying customers and how to do good prospecting, good sales. And a lot of this is, I mean, when I worked at TransPerfect, right? So this is the TransPerfect is really the sales farm. I mean, they're really good at selling, right? And so we got to get that. So the thing for sales from the working with TransPerfect, which is a great sales experience. It's really hard, but it's really great. I mean, doing 20 cold calls per day, cold calls, and 200 letters per day. Even as a sales director, everyone has to do this, right? It was a great experience because what it did was it focused on qualifying your leads, right? And knowing who you're calling and knowing who you're sending letters to, who you're contacting. And I think one of the advantages I had doing that role for all of Francophone EMEA, but it was mainly France and Belgium, right? Was the fact I've worked in a lot of industries, so I know these industries really well, and I know what the customer's needs are. So it's really easy to go into some of these areas, some of these industries, and immediately talk with the customers, the prospects, and see if they have a need, right? See if they have a need or not, and going in with knowledge of how their workflows are, um, and the problems that they run into on different technology and service-based stuff. Because I worked in a lot of these fields, and that really helped to go ahead and quickly figure out if they have a problem or if they have a need or not. And when they didn't have a need or they want to go cheap, I'd say, well, I can recommend some people to do it for cheaper, but you'll be back. And they did come back. Um, but the advantage I think I found in doing all this was knowing how to go in and kind of going in, having that background and being able to say, what are your needs? What are you doing with? Not having a script. I mean, I had a script. There was a script, but not trying to fill a script out. And that's what you're pointing at, right? The script, the dating thing, right? It's like you don't have the script you got to see and talk about, right? But to see, how are you doing things? How are things going? What are you doing? Are you trying to do multilingual or not? And to see, where they were, the things would kind of flesh out pretty quickly if they were struggling with things. And then kind of say, well, and to talk about it in the end, it being a consultant, right? And that just they want you, in the end to help them fix things when there's a need to do this. But it's so important to figure out. Again, I totally agree with what you're saying. Is that it's not about talking about what your script is, what you can do, what your technology is, what all this stuff. It's not about that. It really is about whether they have a need or not. And sometimes they don't have a need. And that's the key thing is to say, well, this isn't right. It's not a right fit. Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and create a need if they don't want to do multilingual, right? Forget it. This is going down the wrong path. But if they do, then the whole thing was to figure out, well, how many languages? What do you have in place? And I've seen some really complex stuff. I mean, I brought back some stuff. Alchemy Catalyst was bought by TransPerfect, right? And so they were working on the kind of the serious workflows. I bring us back really tough cases to crack, like Tony O'Dowd, and I come back and we'd be sitting there in a big room and discussing some really custom bespoke, you know, workflows that the company had figured out in some pharmaceutical clinical trials. Like, so I get this whole workflow design. I said, we got to do this, 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 this. It's all kind of ad hoc. I mean, this stuff was the company didn't, and we all said, well, we need to get them to change that workflow, right? Because to get it to work, right, to automate the thing. And we had a lot of fun doing that, seeing if we could do it or not. And sometimes we said no, because it would just cost too much to make it happen, because they wouldn't want to pay that much. But just being able to go in and really, and all my leads were qualified, right? Every one of my phone calls, 20 per day, was qualified. That meant I knew the company. I had got to know a little bit about the company, enough about it, looking how the website is and stuff, 20 a day, right? And that's not all the other stuff I had to do. So this was, you know, I would never make the mistakes I see people doing to me, where they send me a private message through LinkedIn and stuff, and they say we can help you with the service stuff, blah blah. And I just say, right now I say to them, any questions about translation vendors, just go to translation.sap.com. Okay, that's my answer is because they don't even know who they're talking to, right? That's the first wrong step in sales, is to contact a person that's actually doing what you've been doing for the past 3 decades, right? That's the wrong step. And I've told people this. I said, do you know who you're talking to? And that's, this is part of the, like you said, the dating experience. You want to get to know the person a little bit, right? And figure them out before you want to go out with them. And I think this is like this pre-dating thing, right? There's the pre-dating, kind of figuring them out as much as you can before you want to go on a date, right? A little bit of that can be these things. And I think that's what prospecting versus sales. There's this beginning thing, and it could go nowhere. It's like asking somebody to go out for bowling or mini golf, right? That's a great way to figure out a person, right? Because you're going to see how they handle mistakes, because we all make mistakes in bowling and mini golf, right? So, and to see how they deal with those mistakes in front of another person, right? And sometimes some of this stuff can happen at conferences, talking over lunch or dinner or drink, and kind of figure for what their needs are and stuff, and then contact them. And not always a conference, because that's the conference, like all the hawks or everybody's jumping on the new customers there, right? Wrong way to do it. They're going to be bombarded, but just figuring things out, getting to know them a little bit, ask around, use your contacts on whatever your social networks are, or whatever networking you can do, to figure out what the company is doing, right? And if they've done anything, because you don't want to jump in and start suggesting things to them. Then they've been doing this for 10 years. Come on, give me a break. This would be the wrong approach, right? So there are ways you can do this. And I'm sure you talk about this in all your fluent sales stuff, right? I mean, your training sessions and everything. I'm sure you talk about this stuff. Just don't do that, right? And I get LinkedIn stuff. You know how many I get per day, right? To these questions from all these different translation platforms. I see my name up there. It's like, hey, what do you do in SAP? Da, 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 da. And they said, do you know who you're talking to? Do you even know who you're contacting? Do you understand that? And I stopped doing that now. I say, go to translation.sap.com, and everything's there to start the process. And beware, this is long and time consuming. So, but I really like the way you've approached it with, and you said it came from somebody in a class that said it was like a first date, and it totally makes sense. And I think there's like I said, there's the pre-dating thing, right? The pre-dating experience can help when you've got that opportunity to do that, and that's really fun to be able to do that, because you get in this no pressure kind of thing, just kind of getting to know the person and stuff, without it feel like it's a date, right? So that kind of that can actually filter before you want to do the question. Do you want to go out, right? So that really helps, and I think in sales there's a bit of that too. In sales too, there's slightly bit difference. I'll finish up with this. Is there's difference of like when people go and buy a car, right, or bicycle or camera or guitar or whatever, they're going to come into a shop, right? There's a need. It's already there. It's already established. Now the whole thing is, how do you deal with that need that has already been, it's known, and they're going to come and say, I want this, right? It's different when you're going out and prospecting and saying, do you have this need, right? It's a whole different ballgame. And that's a lot more difficult, because you have to see if they have a need or not. And the thing with our field and language is that everyone has the need, right? Potentially, in everything. Because it's not like selling cars and selling bikes or selling cameras or whatever. You only do it with the people that they want to buy it, right? If they want this thing. Maybe phones are probably the one thing that everybody needs, right? The most, but not everybody's going to want, I'm a rototiller, right? so these are the things where prospecting our field. I mean, I literally go, I can go to a shopping mall and I could sell to any one of these shops, right? It's just figuring out if they want to do it or not, or if they need it. Because if they're a local French thing, and I'm in France, and their audience is only French, they don't care about doing it in English or any other language, right? Now, if it's the subway system, yeah, they do because they got tourists in there, right? They got an audience that needs this stuff. So this kind of it really it depends on what the audience is. So yeah, thanks for that great post, and thanks for making us think a little bit more about how to make the date better, the first date better, and maybe the first sales experience a little better from the sales side and from the receiver, the receiver side, the buying side. Thanks.